G'day legends. In this video, I'm going to show you the secret to achieving huge vocal production in your mixes, getting your vocals to sound absolutely massive, big and full, really wide as well. So if you've been feeling like your vocals sound really small and thin and you just can't get them to have the bigness and the fullness that you want in your mix, then stick around because I've got a couple of techniques that I want to show you to help you get your vocals just sounding massive. Now, if you're looking for tips on how to EQ and compress your vocals, we're not going to be doing that stuff in this video. We're going to be talking about arrangements and how to layer your vocals to achieve a really big, awesome vocal sound. Things like double tracking, triple tracking, vocal stacks, how to layer your harmonies, how to get a big group vocal sound with a small amount of people. So let's dive into this so you can get your vocals sounding huge. For this video, we're going to be looking at kind of more pop related songs, but all of these techniques can be applied anywhere to do with vocals. If you're doing screaming vocals, these same techniques apply. If you're doing rock vocals, it just depends how much you want to layer them, but the techniques will apply across all genres. Firstly, this song is called Obsessed. It's by an artist called Chelsea Berman, and this is a little snippet of the chorus where all of the vocal production is really happening.
I feel sorry for you, hearing what you've become, but that doesn't mean that I'll take this from someone.
So a massive pop anthem style track, but you can hear really big vocal production. Let's listen to the vocals in solo.
I feel sorry for you, hearing what you've become, but that doesn't mean that I'll.
So really nice big full vocal sound. Let's listen to what it sounds like with just the lead vocal.
I feel sorry for you, hearing what you've become. I feel sorry for you, hearing what you've become.
So it is a massive difference from just having that lead vocal to having all of this vocal layering to really make the vocals sound big and full. Now, the first thing I want to talk about here is double tracking and triple tracking vocals, and maybe when you might want to use either of these techniques. At the moment, you're listening to a vocal that's triple tracked. We've got our lead vocal, and then we've got a double track that's panned to the left, and then we've got a double track that's panned to the right. Now, this is what they sound like on their own.
I feel sorry for you, hearing what you've become, but that doesn't mean that I'll take this.
So you can hear this triple track effect is adding width. It's making the vocals sound a bit fuller. It's also adding a bit of a chorus effect. If you know what like chorus sounds like, typically you hear it on guitars and things like that, on synthesizers. It creates a modulating effect because of the slight pitch differences. And that's what we're kind of hearing here. And this is also what makes the vocal sound really big and wide, because we can hear the differences between left and right, and those little pitch differences make the vocal just sound a lot thicker and fuller. These vocals have been edited, time aligned and tuned, all of that stuff that you would do for a pop production, but you can still hear the variance in there, which makes it sound nice and big and wide. So this is definitely my preferred method for getting a really nice big vocal sound, triple tracking vocals. Now here's what you need to know. Each of those takes are unique. They are not the same vocal track copied and pasted. The vocal has been sung 3 times. Sometimes I'll get an artist to track it 3 times, or if they've done enough takes, I'll just comp double tracks out of the leftover stuff that we didn't use for the lead vocal. Let's have a listen to what these double tracks sound like just on their own. You'll see I don't have them panned hard left and right. You definitely can pan these hard left and right. You can pan them 50%. You can experiment with the amount of panning you put on these. Obviously, the further you push them, the wider the vocal sounds, and whether you like that super wide hard pan sound is up to you. I've got them probably around 90% panned.
I feel sorry for you, hearing what you've become, but that doesn't mean that I'll take this from.
So you can see it nice and wide, and then when we put that lead vocal down the center, it just completes the image.
I feel sorry for you, hearing what you've become, but that doesn't mean that I'll take this from some.
So super cool. So let me show you now what it would sound like if we didn't triple track it, but we double tracked it. We just had our lead vocal and then a single double track layered underneath it.
I feel sorry for you, hearing what you've become, but that doesn't mean that I'll take this from some.
So even with just a single double track, it does sound thicker, but that chorus effect is a little bit more prominent because the vocals are just stacked right on top of each other and there's no separation, they're not panned out. Places I like to use double tracking where I'm just having that one vocal stacked underneath it would probably be in a verse if I want to highlight something. If I'm really trying to emphasize something with double tracking, I want to get that wide panned out triple track sound. So maybe if you have a vocal that sounds a little weak and you feel like it needs double tracking predominantly through the song, you could do a single double track underneath it all the way, and then in the sections where you want it really big, you could switch to a triple track and pan it out to left and right. That would be my method. Have a listen to that single double track in the chorus and see how even that does help make the vocals lift and sound fuller.
I feel sorry for you, hearing what you've become, but that doesn't mean that I'll take.
Even a single double track makes a big difference, and if you have the time to triple track, makes it sound even better. Now let me quickly show you a couple of things to avoid, a couple of traps that people fall into who don't quite totally understand how this works. As I've said before, you have to track your double tracks and your triple tracks. They cannot be the same vocal track as your lead vocal. Now there are some little tricks and hacks that you can use to try and get away with that, and we'll explore that a little bit. But let me show you what happens if you just straight up copy paste a vocal and think that it's double tracking. Here's the problem. This is a trap that people fall into. They think that they can double track a vocal by copy and pasting it. So let's just hold down Option, drag down and duplicate this track. Now they might think, okay, I've double tracked that. Turn this down a little bit. Let's have a listen to what this sounds like.
Hearing what you've become, but that doesn't mean that I'll take this from some.
Okay, so you hear what's happened? It's just louder. So there's no difference, but they might think, okay, yeah, it sounds bigger, like it's might get deceived by volume and think that, wow, it has enhanced the vocal, but that's just not double tracking. That's just literally made the vocal louder. So you can't do that to double track vocals. Let's compare to a true double track.
I feel sorry for you, hearing what you've become. I feel sorry for you, hearing what you've become.
So you can hear, it's just the lead vocal, but louder. And same deal, they'll try and do the triple track thing. So they copy and paste it twice, pen it out left and right. Let's just go hard left, hard right. So we've got 3 of the same vocal, 1 hard left, 1 hard right. This is what it sounds like.
I feel sorry for you, hearing what you've become, but that doesn't mean that I'll.
Okay, so I can understand why someone who doesn't completely understand this stuff straight away might think that that's an improvement because it does sound better, but that's just because it's louder. And when things are louder, we're quickly deceived into thinking it sounds better. So I've got this plugin on the mix bus, and you hear when I flick it into mono that we don't actually lose any stereo imaging because everything is already down the center. Even though we've got these 2 vocals panned hard left and right, they're not adding any width because everything is just summing back to the center because it's the exact same audio file. I've turned off the reverb so you're not deceived by the width of the reverb narrowing in. So you're just hearing the dry vocal and you hear there's no difference.
I feel sorry for you, hearing what you've become, but that doesn't mean that I'll take.
So you can hear no width was added, nothing was added, it's just louder. So a trap to avoid. Okay, but then this is one of the hacks that people might do. They might use sample delay to delay the vocals to create a bit of an offset in the timing so that things aren't exactly hitting at the same time, to create a sense of width. So check this out. I'm just going to do this with a single vocal, and we're going to grab Logic sample delay. We're going to use mono to stereo so we can manipulate the left and the right signal so that we can make this sound like it's a little bit out of time. Okay, so to delay this from the lead vocal, I'm going to start with like maybe 9 milliseconds, and then on this one, let's go like 26 milliseconds.
Hearing what you've become, but that doesn't mean that I'll take this from some low life who denies.
So you can manipulate that timing as much as you want, and you can hear as I pushed it further away, you start to hear more of a separation between the two, even though they're the same vocal file. Now let's have a listen to what this sounds like with the lead vocal down the center.
I feel sorry for you, hearing what you've become, but that doesn't mean that
So now this is creating a bit of width, even though we're using the same vocal file. And this is called the Haas effect, where you delay the timing of the left and the right, and it creates this perception of width. It's kind of like a psychoacoustic effect. And it's just because in this instance, we're hearing the left sooner and then the right is delayed. And so it makes us think that it's a nice wide sound.
I feel sorry for you, hearing what you've become.
So you can hear it doesn't have the same quality of a true triple track. Let's compare the two, the fake and the real triple track.
I feel sorry for you, hearing what you've become, but that doesn't mean that I'll take this from some.
So you can hear the real triple track has more of that pitch and chorus effect to it. It sounds a little bit wider, whereas the fake triple track, even though it adds a little bit of width to it, it sounds more like a reverb effect. It doesn't really have unique characteristics on the left and the right. Here's a reason why I would avoid using the same vocal and putting this effect on it, because when you sum it down into mono, down the center of the mix, it doesn't sound quite right. There's a lot of like double up of the same vocal, slightly delayed. It just sounds a little messy. Have a listen to it.
I feel sorry for you, hearing what you've become, but that doesn't mean that I'll take this.
So it has this slappy, echoey effect about it, which is a little messy sounding. Have a listen to what it sounds like when we put a real triple track into mono.
I feel sorry for you, hearing what you've become, but that doesn't mean that.
It still has a double tracking quality about it. So even if you're listening to your mix in mono, that triple track effect is still going to support a nice double tracking sound. Now, sometimes having a triple track is a bit of a luxury because people may not have the time to track enough vocals to get a good triple track going on. If you only have a single double track to work with, then that sample delay technique can actually be a good hack to make your vocals sound a little bit wider and fake a triple track with an actual double track. So let me show you what I mean. So let's go back to our lead vocal and a single double track over the top of each other.
I feel sorry for you.
And let's say that's all you've got to work with, but you want to make these vocals sound nice and wide. Then you could use that sample delay technique to offset the timing of the left and the right of the double track to make the double track sound nice and wide. But what works about this is it's still a different take to the lead vocal. So you're still going to get that really nice double tracking effect, but you're going to add that width to it as well. So let's check this out.
I feel sorry for you, hearing what you've become, but that doesn't mean that.
So you can see that actually works pretty well to create width on a vocal because there's still two different takes. Now that's just using the stock Logic sample delay, but you can do the exact same thing using a plugin like Waves Doubler. So if you're going to do this with Waves Doubler, you'd go with the doubler mono to stereo, and it can be as simple as turning off the direct signal. This is the center image. And then I like to boost up the gains to 0 on the left and the right. So we've got our two different voices. You can see I've got a similar delay here, 9 milliseconds and 23 milliseconds. And it's going to give us a pretty similar effect to what I just had with the Logic sample delay. Let's check this out.
I feel sorry for you, hearing what you've become, but that doesn't mean that I'll take.
Pretty cool. What's cool about this plugin is you can manipulate the panning as well as the delay and the pitch, and there's a bunch of different things, bit of EQ. So you can really tweak this effect and make it sound half decent. So I actually use this plugin all the time when I only have a single double track to work with and I want to make things sound wide. But as you can hear, the Logic sample delay does a great job of it as well. So there's a couple of things to avoid, as well as a couple of ways that you can manipulate a single vocal to make it sound nice and wide to achieve that triple track without actually having 3 lots of vocals to work with. Now it obviously comes down to the song and what it needs as to how much layering you're going to add. A triple track is a great place to start in a big chorus, and then if you have harmonies, double tracking them so that you can pan them out left and right is always a good choice too. You can do the effect where we have the single harmony and then put the splitter on it and widen it out, but it is always best to double track if you have the time and the ability to do so. It just sounds a little bit better. So we actually have 2 sets of harmonies here. Each of these are double tracked and they pan left and right a little bit past 50%.
I feel
feel sorry for you, hearing what you've become. So that's my very tuned vocal.
I feel sorry for you, hearing what you've become.
But you hear it sounds nice and wide. Let's listen to what it would sound like if this was down the center.
I feel sorry for you, hearing what you've become. I feel sorry for you, hearing what you've become.
Even though it's turned down and it's quieter than the lead vocal, the fact that it's down the center, we're drawn to it. That gets a little bit more attention. So by having it double tracked and panned out left and right, it doesn't take up as much focus. The focus is still on the lead vocal, and the harmony is creating a nice warm hug kind of around that lead vocal.
I feel sorry for you, hearing what you've become.
All right, so pretty cool. And then we have another harmony layer.
I feel sorry for you, hearing what you've become, but that doesn't mean that.
So you hear that harmony, it's a bit higher. It's a single note that's just sitting in there and creating just a really nice blend with the vocals. But in the mix, it's not really like a part that your ears are drawn to. Once you've got everything around it, it kind of disappears a bit, but it is an important part to just making the vocals sound more highlighted and lift them up a little bit. That high harmony just creates a nice lift.
I feel sorry for you, hearing.
Here in the mix, it's not very obvious, but when we listen to it on its own, you can hear what it's adding.
I feel sorry for you.
Pretty cool. And because we're going for a really big vocal sound, we also have a low octave vocal in here as well, just to accentuate that melody.
I feel sorry for you, hearing what you've become, but that doesn't mean that I'll take this from some.
Now, your production may not need this many layers of vocals, but if you're going for a really big pop vocal sound, you'll be surprised how many layers you can get away with. But if it's a big section of a song and you want it to sound big and wide, I would always recommend double tracking your harmonies so that you can pan them out left and right. So that's my typical checklist for a big chorus. You want to have your lead vocal, you want to have 2 double tracks, so you can do the triple track vocal effect, panning them out left and right. Any harmonies, double track them so you can make it sound nice and big and wide. Okay, and let's talk about vocal stacks, because we can go really quite crazy with this stuff. I've got a stack right here for just a little part in the chorus that gets highlighted, and it sounds awesome. So check this out.
I'll take this from some low life who denies what they did to me.
So on those words, low life and denies, we've got a big stack of vocals creating almost like a choir effect.
I'll take this from some low life who denies what they did to me.
Let's hear it on its own.
Low life, denies.
Okay, so you're listening to 12 layers of me doing a bunch of different harmonies, and it sounds pretty cool in the mix though. So let me show you the breakdown of what's going on here. Everything is hard panned left and right for this because I just wanted it to sound really big and wide and just leave space for that lead vocal to sit down the center and not get too smothered by this. Same method for harmonies in the chorus. If you want to make them nice and wide, you've got to double track each of them. So you got to record them twice. And that's exactly what I've done here. Now, with some stacks, it's actually really cool to just hit single notes. If the melody works and you can get away with doing this kind of thing, it actually sounds really cool. You can create a really big chord sound rather than doing harmonies that necessarily follow the vocal around. So that's kind of what I've gone for here, like a big chord kind of effect. So you'll hear they're all just one note harmonies.
Low life, denies. 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 Low life, denies.
So we've got 6 different harmonies here laid together to create this really big sound, all of them double tracked. So 12 vocals in total.
Low life, denies.
And it sounds awesome. It creates a really massive vocal stack that we can use to highlight vocals within our song.
Low life who denies what they did to me.
Have a listen to what it sounds like if that's not in there.
Some low life who denies what they did.
It's crazy the difference. What if we took away half of these vocals?
Some low life who denies what they did to me.
It still sounds cool, but it doesn't have the impact of having everything big and double tracked. Now I've got each of those double tracks set to the same level. You can see -7, -7, -9.6, -9.6. So I've kept the doubles the same volume in the left and the right. Now you can still double track all of this stuff And you could mess with those levels if you want to create a bit more difference in the stereo field. So let's experiment with that a little bit.
Low life, de-nice.
So that's an equal balance there right now. So let's turn a couple of these up and down.
Low life, de-nice.
So that's pretty cool too, because it creates difference in the left and the right. You got slightly different harmonies happening over the left and the right speakers, and your ears are drawn to hear those slight differences, which does make things sound wider too. So there's no rule with this stuff. You can either just have them all the same volume just for that big wall of sound, or if you want to create some difference, just mess with the levels, mess with the panning, and you'll create a really unique sound across that stereo image. Sounds cool. Okay, and what if you want to have like, say, a gang vocal or a chant in your song? Do you need to go out and get like 20 people together, get a whole bunch of people into the studio to do this? Well, it sounds great if you can. There's nothing that beats actually having a huge group of people singing together. It sounds awesome. I've done choir recordings and there's nothing kind of like it. When you have all the voices together, it sounds great. But it can be done with less people. It can be done with even just one person, but it does take a little bit of mucking around to get it to sound good. So check out this little chant that we've got going on here.
You're so obsessed with my success.
Okay, so we've got 20 tracks here of Chelsea doing this line, and I just got her to do it a bunch of times, just put different emphasis on it. Some of them are a little bit harder, some of them are a little bit looser on the timing, and you can hear it does make it sound quite big. You can still hear it's her voice. She's not doing a huge amount of changing to her vocal tone to make it sound like heaps of different people. But if you want it to sound like there's a big group of people, then you have to muck around and do funny different tonalities to your voice. It can feel really stupid, but it can work really well. If you're doing a line and you just make it sound really nasally, or then you just like put on a really deep, warm tone to your voice, mucking around with your vocal tone and stacking it, you can create fake gang vocals, fake chants, and it does sound awesome. And even with this instance where Chelsea's not really changing her vocal tone, it still sounds great.
You're so obsessed.
And you can see with these, they're all just hard pan left and right and just blended together. Have a listen to it with the lead vocal over the top, just the cool effect that it adds.
You're so obsessed.
So it's almost like a cheerleader chant kind of sound, which it works great for this song. But even if you have like a pop punk band, a metal band in the studio, and there's just like 3 or 4 of them, but they want gang vocals, just get them around the mic and just do it like 20 times, and then just encourage them to just make it sound a little different each time. Just be like, just make it really angry this time, or like just shout it a little different, put on a slightly different tone. And eventually it does start to sound like a really cool gang vocal. I'll jump into another project so you can hear what I mean. All right, so this is a gang vocal of like 3 people. We've done 13 takes of just these 2 words.
Live life.
It sounds pretty big. Sounds like a big group of people. It's just 3 people. This is what one gang vocal take sounds like.
Live life.
You know, it's not there. 2 gang vocal takes.
Live life.
Yeah, 4 gang vocal takes.
Live life.
Starting to sound like something. 8 takes.
Live life.
Starting to really sound like something. 13 takes.
Live life.
Yeah, it sounds good now. So you can see with this one, I actually mucked around the panning. There are a couple hard pan, there's a couple like halfway pan, and then there's a couple down the center. So just really filling it out. You can hear the center does have a strong image with this one.
Live life.
And that just helps create a really strong emphasis on those words when the lead vocal sings them.
Or how we choose to live life. I don't know what.
That's what it sounds like without it.
Or how we choose to live life. I don't.
So it sounds like a big group of people. And that's because I asked these guys to put on different voices as they were going. So you can hear these last takes.
Live life.
They're really shouting it. Have a listen to these first takes.
Live life.
It's not as gritty. Sounds like different people.
Live life.
A little different again.
Live life.
He's got one of them's doing a high voice in there. I didn't even know that. That sounds great in there. Sounds silly on its own, but in the gang vocal, it works great.
Live life.
Listen to that. Different tones, like just being silly.
Live life.
It sounds kind of dumb, but let's listen to the whole thing together.
Live life.
Sounds awesome. So you do have to muck around with it to create that bigger, wider, fuller sound, because if you do shout it and sing it the exact same way every time, it ends up just sounding like a double track and it doesn't really create different tonality. So what makes gang vocals and chants really unique is all of the different vocal tones that are coming together. And if you just have the same vocal tone over and over again, then that voice starts to really poke out and become clear amidst all the takes. And that's why mixing it up is so important. So there you have it, guys. There's a couple of ways that you can arrange and layer vocals to get a really nice, big, full vocal production sound. Hope you guys found this helpful, and if you did, make sure you hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. And if you want to support this channel, check out the link in the description below. I've got a bunch of drum sample packs and mixing courses over on my website. Picking up any of those really does help support the time that goes into making videos like this. If you guys have any good tips that you want to add on to this video, drop them in the comments below. I'm always keen to hear what you guys are doing in your mixes. And if you want to check out some of the other videos from this series, The Secret 2, there's a couple of ones on guitar production and drum production. I'll drop some links in the comments below. Otherwise, click on that next video coming up.